Welcome, Dr. James Beckett, Sports Card Insights. First, thanks sponsors. Forgot to thank them in the previous episode. So thanks sponsors, Topps Panini, Upper Deck, Heritage Auctions, Hugs and Scott Auctions, Mike Stadium Sports Card, Burbank Sports Cards, ComC.com, and Beckett Media, Beckett Grading, Beckett Authentication. I believe all of my sponsors will be at the National, and they're all hoping it's great too. The conversation with Jeremy, this is the second half, always enjoyable, but as you know, he's a very long-form guy, and even when he's going to chop it, he's going to chop his 3 hours into 5 Monday through Friday, 30 to 40 minutes. That's still way longer than what I do. So I basically had 23 minutes of conversation with Jeremy, and I'm trying to stay within 15 minutes. So I broke it into two 12-minute segments, of which I'm adding a little bit to the front of it. Please just check his channel, check his episode on that, and all of his content is good. I did think of one more thing I thought of. I realized in this episode, he asked me what I plan to do and what my objectives were, and I told him 4 things. It's a little bit off the top of my head, and I forgot one that used to be maybe even the most important, and now is still important because it's part of my muscle memory. But I talked about the cards, the friends, old friends and new friends, the money. I like to come back with either more cards or more money, but it's usually more cards, not more money. And then the experiences, the feelings, just all of that. But there's a 5th thing, which is really, like I said, was number 1 back in the day, is that learning. I love to learn. And the National is a fabulous learning experience, especially when I was doing price guides. What you see and what you didn't see. I should have mentioned that. That was an important thing for me. I love to learn, and the National is probably, it might have been the best place to learn. All the smart people are there, a bunch of cards. As I said, I went around. Even the cards I was looking for were cards that were not well understood or known, and I'd pick up type cards. Don't forget that. Again, it's great to see old friends. It's great to pick up some cards, but it's great to learn too. And if you're a newbie, we had some ideas of how a new person could maybe get on that learning journey, which I believe is a lifetime. It's a lifestyle, as Jeremy says, but also can be a lifetime experience of great friends, great cards, and learning and enjoying on your own terms. Thanks, Jeremy, and here it is.
Is there anything that you are specifically looking to pick up for yourself at this year's National? And I say that knowing, because I listen to your content, you are also at a point in your life where you are moving on from your collection very slowly. So how do you, as a seasoned hobbyist and collector and expert in the space as well, how do you balance picking up new cards? What are you looking to buy at the National this year, along with your lifelong goal of eventually moving on from your collection?
I'm trying to shrink my collection, Jeremy. And if I were to go around the National and find a card that I really liked, which would be pretty easy. So I'm not saying I'm that particular that I couldn't find some I liked. The problem is I would want to trade the cards that I don't want for that big card, and nobody's going to do it. So I am just slowly doing my 1% a month, which I'm on track for, and I'm reducing and shrinking. So what that allows me to do is have a collection that's more easily displayed. If somebody comes over, I've thinned it out a little bit to where I can get to the stuff that's worth spending more time on instead of boxes of cards that they're not clutter. They're good cards. They're just not great cards. So I'm reducing my good cards so the better cards I have can have greater prominence. I have good cards I've never even put out because I don't have room. So when I get thinned out, maybe I could do that.
So while you are reducing your collection by 1% a month, you are still also adding new cards every so often. Is that correct?
I buy 1/10 of 1% a month, sell 1% a month. So at 100 months, talk to me.
For me, this is not a phase I'm going through. If it is, it's been a lifelong phase. To me, the hobby is really a humongous part of my life. I say at the beginning of Sports Cards Live in our jingle, you hear sports cards is a lifestyle, and it truly is a lifestyle for me.
Okay, but we're similar in that we're both consolidating. I am consolidating by reducing the lower level stuff. You're consolidating by finding a grail card worthy of you being all in on. Then you're consolidating after the fact, with the assistance of getting enough cards sold to cover that. I'm just doing half of that.
Yeah, our collections are fluid. They're always evolving, at least mine is. And that's one of the most exciting things about the hobby is that I don't know what I'm going to add. One of my favorite things about going to the National, Dr. Beckett, is the surprise of what am I going to acquire there? What am I going to leave with? Because I'm not going with a list of 4 cards I have to purchase. I have cards that are at the top of my want list. They are my highest priorities, and I hope to be able to add one, maybe two of them. But I also look forward to seeing what am I going to leave with when I'm flying out of there late Sunday night. What are the cards I had no idea I was going to acquire that are now in my possession? What are those cards? I always look forward to that because I collect with focus, but I also collect with lack of focus. I like things that catch my eye, and I'm always excited to add those sorts of things to the collection. Now, in that tone, Dr. Beckett, you know what to expect at the National, generally speaking, but what are you most looking forward to this year? Whether it's items or experiences, interactions?
I'll tell you four things, and it's the same four things, and there may be more, but it's just four that I could think of that relate to what I collect or why I go to the National or any other kind of card show. And so what do I collect? I collect cards. Okay. I collect some players. I collect some sets. I collect some teams. I collect some themes, all those things. A lot of people do that. The other thing I collect are friends. Okay. So I'm going to connect with some old friends mainly, but some new friends too. The next thing I collect is, I don't say I collect money, but I'll be financially better off after the show than I was before the show in my collecting. I may have less money in my pocket, but I'll have more than that value of cards. And then the last one is just the experiences, the kudos, the feelings, the accomplishments, and the enjoyment of just being there. So those are the four reasons I collect. And they're the four reasons I'm really looking forward to this National, because all of them are there in abundance. If you don't know a lot of people at the National, by the end of the week, you could have some fast friends just by sitting next to them or walking with them or talking to them. They're kindred spirits. This is a fraternity/sorority. There's more than 5% women there now, which is great.
The thing that I take away from that, Dr. Beckett, is that it's more than the cards.
Absolutely.
The cards are a big part of it, but the National, to me, it's about community building. It's about growing friendships and relationships that we've made with our like-minded fellow hobbyists. Some of my best friends have come out of the hobby. I'm sure the same is for you.
Another idea for the National Brain Trust, and that is that if a solitary person walks up to the National, a newbie doesn't know what's going on, and they walk in and they look around, I don't like the chances they're going to stick around. Okay. I'd love it if the National said, if you're brand new, wait here. We're going to gather 4 or 5 of the new people that come in, and the first hour, we're going to walk around with you, and you guys are going to chat amongst each other, and we're going to create a little bit of a cohort to walk around. And you'd have a built-in, your pledge class kind of in your fraternity that you're walking through. But if you walk in by yourself, I use the analogy of church sometimes. If you walk into a new church by yourself, you walk in, and if nobody, whatever, you don't understand, you don't know what's going on at the end, you walk out, you probably don't come back. Unless people are greeting you, explaining to you and all that, unless we are intentional, but they're not walking in with a cap that says, I'm brand new, I don't know what's going on, except you can tell sometimes.
Yeah.
But if the National would group them or say, look, if you're a first timer, we've got a special cap for you, or we got a badge for you, and we're going to encourage the dealers to be patient with you. Although the dealers don't always like that because they think it's revenue negative in the short term. But we've got to bring them in and get them saying, I want to come back tomorrow. And boy, that dealer was really friendly and really explained things to me. So you've got to do something like that. Otherwise, they're going to walk in, get overwhelmed, and walk out with never making a friend. And you know what? The person they're walking in next to has the potential to be a friend for life. If they're a Cubs fan and they walk in with a White Sox fan, they can have that animosity to feed off each other still of being both from the Chicago area and bantering. You've got to get engaged. It can't be a passive walk through a museum where you walk out and you didn't interact with anybody, you didn't get any cards, you were overwhelmed. You mentioned my books and magazines. All along, the goal was to even the playing field between dealers and collectors and to make it attractive to new people coming in and understandable through a price guide, through other materials that we had that were a little bit nicer than they needed to be. That's what people told me at the time. You don't need to make it that nice. We just want a price guide. I said, no, this is going to be a magazine that people are going to carry around. They're going to show to their friends. I want it to look good. And that turned out to be good. That turned out to be smart and good business. So we spent money before we needed to on something that turned out to be a really good investment. And I hope the National Brain Trust are doing that as well. They're investing in this hobby and investing in this event, which is going to be in Chicago for 3 straight years.
Mm-hmm. The National has said it is so much more than just the cards. It is the experience. It's the lifestyle. It's the community. You mentioned something interesting. You would like the vendors to be patient with new hobby participants. And I think most vendors nowadays are going to do that. I think they are more than willing to do that because that is how to grow the hobby. We all love this hobby so much. We want to see it grow. And I think a new person coming in would be pleasantly surprised to see that even the busiest vendor is very likely, unless they're having a bad day, is very likely to take some time with that new person, even if it is revenue negative in the moment. I think people would be pleasantly surprised. And the other thing is that vendor who goes above and beyond and takes extra time with somebody new is going to likely develop into a bit of an advisor to you or someone that you can go to next year for advice and say, hey, I'm thinking about buying this card. What do you think? These people can be great resources for you, not just this year, but moving forward as well.
If you're a frequent flyer with American Airlines, they give you these little coupons. And the little coupons are thank yous you give to somebody that gave you good service. So if I had a steward or somebody at the gate that was really helpful to me, I could give them one of those. And if they get a certain number of them, I don't know if they get cash, but they get recognition from American Airlines. If every newbie that came into the National got 10 of these coupons, like I get from American Airlines, that you just write your name on the back of it and your advantage number, and you give it. If I had 10 of those, if I was a newbie and I gave it to 10 different dealers who were very helpful to me, and then they go back to Joe and the National guys and say, you know what, I got a bunch of these things, and you said there'd be X credit, whatever, for doing that. Thank you for being customer friendly. And then people would say, I want to be friendly because I want to get this stuff because I'm going to be entered in a drawing for something. Whatever, because for every guy you're talking about that's going to be kind and friendly, there's a bunch of them that are really pretty busy. And I think giving them some incentive to be extra friendly, and maybe Saturday's the day, Jeremy. I don't know. Saturday's typically been the consumer day, but Friday and Saturday are huge days at the National. If you can't put on a smiley face for 5 days, at least put it on for a couple days. And frankly, many of the dealers have already made plenty of money by Thursday night.
Yeah. So they
should be smiling. What's encouraging me is there's more shows and there's bigger attendance. There's as much enthusiasm as there ever has been. I hope the National is reflective of that. But Jeremy, the Nationals were great even when they weren't as well attended. There's more cards, but there's more competition for the cards. The cards are higher price. You can look at the pros and cons of all that. There's more people there that you don't know, but more people there that you do know. The experiences are there to be had. And the money is significant now. It's life-changing for some people.
It might be the greatest time to be a hobbyist right now.
The very first National, Jeremy, certain cards were priceless. It's not that they weren't priced at your booth. They really weren't for sale. And you've pointed out with your Shoeless Joe, maybe for stupid money it's for sale, for ridiculous money. But even back in 1980, people would have stuff they wanted to share their loved possessions, and they really weren't for sale. Even the stupid money then would have looked stupid the other way now. But there were people just wanted to show off their stuff. And then people wanted to buy it. They'd make offers. Say, I really don't want to sell it. I love it. The cards were better than the cash because they had an emotional component. That has never left, and it's even increased.
The